Hi, I'm Jordan Stone with The Good Ride, and I'm putting my big girl pants on to tackle the big mountain boards of Weston. Today I've got the Gnarnia 151 from Weston. This board, man, it thrives in steep technical terrain. It feels like it could take on really any technical terrain, but it also feels like a lot of board, which is pretty consistent with most of the Weston boards that I got on. It does lack some torsional flex, which kind of give it some chunky transitions, and it's definitely an all-business board. This is a hard charger that requires you staying on your game. Here at The Good Ride, we strive to give you our honest and objective opinion of each board. We are not paid by the companies to do that, so you're just getting what our experience is. However, we do have a sponsor that helps support this, honest, objective reviews.
This is all made possible by our sponsors, thanks to Blower out of Big Bear. Blower has been around selling snowboards almost as long as I've been on this planet. So I really appreciate any company that is going to be core, true to the bone when it comes to snowboarding. They have been supporting snowboarders longer than most resorts have been supporting snowboarders, so they are a great fit for us. So please go out there, support them. They have a wonderful online shop and in-store brick and mortar shop.
The Gnarnia was tested over multiple days in a variety of conditions in the Pacific Northwest. These conditions included groomed, tracked out powder, and packed powder with a little bit of pockets of deep snow. I rode this board with a directional stance of +18, -9, set at a reference stance of 20 inches, with my women's trilogy bindings from Union at a size medium, and men's Dialogues boots from Solomon in a men's size 7, which equates to a women's size 8. I rode this board in sequence with the Dream Machine on the same day, but also rode them separate days in very similar conditions on the same runs. I was able to get on a 151. This is recommended for a rider of about 105 pounds up to 165 pounds. This is a wide range for a 151 as it is considered a unisex board. Please consider sizing down if you're on the smaller end of this range, especially due to the kind of aggressive nature of this board. It is available in a pretty wide range, 143 at its smallest all the way up to 166 wide. If you're interested in some of those bigger size reviews, please refer to some of my fellow reviewers for some larger sizes. I know they got a chance to get on it for men's and the big boy size as well. The 151 has a waist width here of 24.6, which is about a size 8 in men's, or a women's size 9, 9.5. So it'll accommodate quite a wide range of foot sizes and weights. The Weston Gnarnia has a directional free ride shape. This is categorized by a mild taper of 9 millimeters here. They also set back about 10 millimeters on the side cut. So this is designed to be a little bit more back end. At reference of 20 inches, you get about 1.625, so almost 2 inches of extra nose on this board. But if you set this all the way back to the furthest inserts on the board, it gives you almost 3 inches of setback. Now it does increase that reference stance to 21 inches, but it's going to give you a little bit more float. This is an improvement from the Dream Machine that really lacks a lot of it. It only gets about 2 inches if set all the way back. The Gnarnia does have a camber profile, as you can see here. Past the inserts here to about here, it is set back slightly to accommodate that directional shape and the set back side cut. Definitely significant rocker in that nose, lifting it all the way up to here with just a little mild early rise in the tail. This does come with 115 centimeter effective edge, so pretty long effective edge given the shape and the size. This board feels like a lot of board between you and the snow, and it gives the board a lot of stability, but some disconnect to the terrain underneath you. This disconnect was amplified by the catchy feeling that the board had when riding cat tracks or traversing. I kind of like to have a little bit of the sensation of the ground underneath me just so I can accommodate it and adapt to it. This really felt like I had a board between me, and that was hard. It was hard to really feel what was going on. I had to let the board drive. I tended to stay on edge to avoid a flat basing and to feel that sensation of catching. This board is capable of doing skid turns, but it requires effort. and centered or forward riding style. For this reason and the aggressive personality of this board, I recommend this for advanced to expert riders who live in areas with steeper and more consequential terrain. The Weston Gnarnia does not have any visible edge disruption. However, the edge hold was pretty acceptable on softer conditions. It held long enough to transition through a turn at fast speeds, but the edge was challenged by icier conditions and steeper, tighter terrain. I found the edge slipping in icy crust, especially when I had to slow down to navigate tight trees. I found this board actually would just kind of slide down the hill and wouldn't lock in, requiring me to maneuver quicker than I was really planning on. I was also unable to lock in when carving, especially in lower angle terrain. I contribute this a lot to the stiffness of the board as well as that camber profile, and I'm on the lower end of that weight range. Speed and power into turns really did improve the edge hold. I can't say it enough. I think this board is designed for a heavier rider and a powerful rider. That's where you're going to start to see a lot of improvement in how the board performs.
All right, Weston Gnarnia here. This board is a little bit stiffer here than just compared to that Dream Machine. Gonna have some more oomph in the middle. It's also a little bit wider. As far as that pop goes, not quite as much. It's not as reactive as you're gonna get in a Dream Machine. Still can get out of it if you can really put some weight into that and flex through the board. If we take it down here to the tail, also a little stiffer. It's not gonna have the springiness and bounciness of that Dream Machine. Flip this baby around here. And then the nose here, actually a little softer in the nose. So interestingly, because this is a directional board, stiffer in the tail, a little softer in the nose here, and then all around that whole board kind of transfers from a softer to stiffest in the tail.
I was really impressed with Weston's ability to incorporate sort of dampening technology without really having dampening technology into their boards. It handled really well in uneven snow and when transferring from packed to unpacked tracked out powder. Now it's two sides to this, however. It is a very solid board, it is a stiff board, and so it charged through a lot of stuff, but I also had that disconnect, which kind of prevented me from being playful with the board. That was a little tricky when I got into some soft, uneven snow where I wanted to do some quicker maneuvers, wanted to get around and maybe get into some of the pockets of untracked because the board just wasn't as nimble as some other boards that I've been on. The Gnarnia was a lot of fun to turn. The turning initiation on this reflected its side cut radius, which is a variable side cut radius. Interestingly, with this board, they actually start at a very kind of wide side cut radius of 9.5, and as it progresses through the middle of the board, it gets down to a 7.6, a 7.3, and then ends at an 8.6. How this translates into turning is in the front and the back of the board. The turns initiate a little bit slower, but once you get into the arc of the turn through the middle of the board, it's actually quicker, a little faster through there, with a little bit smaller radius in the tail. So it still kind of locks in and holds through that tail in steeper conditions when you can flex the board and recruit that entire edge hold, but gives it a little bit of a surfy feeling, a little slight surfy feeling. Again, this board is a beast. This board's meant to be big, long, powerful turns. It's not really designed to be a playful board. Now, I had a little bit of an issue carving on this board because of the fact that I wasn't able to really lock in on that edge hold. It really was better the faster that I went, but without the power, the speed, and the force, the board could feel a little bit out of control. It was hard for me to get that full edge control and hard for me to get a full carve. However, this board is super comfortable when at high speeds, which is where I think that this board should shine. This is its space, that's its lane. It's fast, powerful, speed, steep terrain. When you get it out of that terrain, it can feel a little bit catchy. It can also feel a little harder to maneuver at slow speeds. It's a big, bulky board. That board is meant to charge and take on forces. But if you don't have the forces necessary, you're gonna feel that as a rider. The board comes equipped with a centered 4001 base. This is a performance base. This board was given to us as a demo board with a factory wax. As it is, it lacked a little bit of base glide. However, with weather-specific wax, the base glide improved significantly. As is with most sintered bases, the board will benefit from regular, weather-specific wax and professional tuning from time to time. I was able to get this board on some steeper terrain. I was searching out the steeper terrain so I could really see how this board performed. I'm a little limited at Mount Bachelor because it's not a very steep mountain, but was able to get up to our steeper areas and lucked out and got some good powder. It was actually really good in powder, even though it doesn't have a ton of nose and I didn't set it all the way back. I was just at reference. It made it a little easier to push into the turns without really being concerned about that edge hold. It allowed for a little bit more playfulness and quickness, and I actually could get a little bit of surfy in there. I like getting that flow. The disconnect I found with this board on harder groomed and more uneven snow, it went away slightly as I was able to have higher speeds, softer snow, and more, I would say, terrain specific for this board. Overall, Weston was born out of the big mountains of Colorado. And as a previous Colorado local, I know how much more those mountains have to offer when it comes to steeps and technical terrain. The Gnarnia is a perfect example of a big mountain board. The shape, camber profile, flex, and personality all lend themselves to terrain that requires speed and strength. I have no doubt that this board shines in high consequence environments. However, this type of board personality is challenging in terrain that lacks that necessary vert. In lower angled terrain and at slower speeds, this board is harder to flex, leading to the rider to get less than ideal edge control. It also requires that the rider has to always be charging, always be on. This is not only exhausting, but an unrealistic expectation for the general rider out there. This board is for the aggressive rider who is looking to get out into challenging vertical terrain. When you get onto the Gnarnia, it's all business, but business is good. If you like our reviews and you want to continue to promote us, please like and share. If you want some advice, please follow the links. I'm here to help the best I can.